Joining us, we do have some developing news happening right now. At any moment, we're told we could see Israel begin a limited ground operation into Lebanon. It comes as President Biden once again is calling for an immediate ceasefire in the Middle East. At least 4 people were killed in a precision strike on an apartment building here in central Beirut earlier today. That's the first strike to hit this area in 18 years. For more, let's bring in our national security and defense analyst and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, Mick Mulroy. So just what is your overall sense, Mick? I mean, just what we're seeing in such a short period of time since Nasrallah was killed on Friday. Now Israel's talking about this limited ground incursion into Lebanon. I mean, it truly looks like things are escalating here.
I agree, Kira, and everything we've seen so far does look like it's leading to an actual ground incursion that might be limited now, but might be quite extensive in the future, from targeting the communications to targeting the leadership to these consistent airstrikes to really soften the terrain and the enemy's posture before a ground incursion would happen. You'd also expect these small-scale special operations incursions to start this, both to target key locations, also to conduct reconnaissance, to send back to the ground forces. So this might start limited, but it could easily expand to substantial. And I think that's what the U.S. and so many in the region are concerned of. But right now, that is the way it looks like it's headed.
So the Pentagon is also saying that it's sending more troops to help boost security and help defend Israel if needed. What kind of message does that send to the region?
So it could be purely preparatory, or it could be based on intelligence that we have, and we've shown we've had a lot of good intelligence on Iran and which they plan to do, either directly from Iran or trying to coordinate all their proxy forces to potentially do a multi-pronged attack, which the United States, I think, would likely be called into, especially if we see what we saw in April. And it's also important to point out that the U.S. is likely also preparing for a large-scale evacuation from Lebanon, kind of like we did in 2006, which was a huge effort then, but there's even more American citizens in Lebanon now. So the U.S. military is going to be fully employed in this region and likely overtasked, but I think they're more than capable of getting this done and defending Israel and potentially supporting U.S. citizens in their evacuation if that becomes necessary.
Good morning, Michael. Hundreds of union workers here tell us that they are demanding a fair contract, and the union's president says that they will stay on strike until they get that. Until then, busy shipping hubs like the Port of New York and New Jersey here, the busiest on the East Coast, are at a virtual standstill.
Nothing's going to move without us.
This morning, tens of thousands of union dock workers at more than a dozen ports from Maine to Texas are off the job and on the picket line.
We're here to support for going forward the future. No automation. We want to secure our jobs.
At midnight, the International Longshoremen's Association announcing its first strike in nearly 50 years after it failed to reach a new contract agreement with the U.S. Maritime Alliance. During 11th hour negotiations, the union insisting on a 77% pay increase over 6 years and limits on the use of automated machines. The shipping industry group responding with the nearly 50% pay hike.
I want to tell you all what you're doing is right. This is going down in history, what we're doing here.
14 vital ports that absorb more than half of the cargo shipped to the U.S. from other countries are now at a standstill. Fresh fruit, clothes, machinery, and medicine won't be loaded on or off container ships, potentially costing the American economy up to $7.5 billion in 1 week. Analysts say for every day the strike lasts, it could take 6 days to clear the backlog, an echo of supply chain bottlenecks during the pandemic. Retailers like executive Kevin Rhee say a strike lasting more than a couple weeks could force businesses like his to raise prices for customers.
If all the East Coast and the Gulf Coast ports are closed, businesses will be bringing things in from the West Coast, which will cause more congestion there. and you have to transport that all the way across the country. Ultimately, what that means is higher costs for consumers.